What if I told you that the next 7 days could completely change the way people respond to your presence? Not because you learned a clever trick, not because you became someone else, and certainly not because you begged for attention, but because you finally started sending a different emotional signal to the world. Most people believe love is something that arrives by chance. They wait for the perfect message, the perfect timing, the perfect person, believing that one day everything will simply fall into place. But psychology paints a very different picture. Human beings are constantly communicating without speaking. Long before anyone notices your appearance, your words, or your achievements, they begin responding to your emotional energy, your confidence, your sense of self, and the quiet story you tell about yourself through your behavior. The greatest mistake is believing that love begins with another person. In reality, love almost always begins with the relationship you have with yourself, because every interaction becomes a reflection of what you believe you deserve. If you spend your days chasing approval, you unknowingly train your mind to expect rejection. If you spend your days fearing abandonment, your actions become controlled by anxiety instead of authenticity. But if, for just 7 days, you intentionally reshape the habits that influence your emotions, your confidence, and your communication, you may discover that attraction feels less like luck and more like a natural consequence of becoming emotionally secure. Think about the people who effortlessly attract meaningful relationships. They are not always the loudest in the room. They are not always the wealthiest, the most attractive, or the most talented, yet they possess something that cannot be purchased or faked. They are emotionally grounded. They don't desperately seek validation because they have already built a healthy relationship with themselves. They don't enter conversations trying to convince others of their worth because they already believe they are valuable. This creates a psychological effect that researchers often describe as emotional safety. People naturally feel more comfortable around individuals who are calm, genuine, and emotionally balanced because our brains constantly scan the environment for signs of stability. When someone appears secure, they reduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is one of the greatest sources of emotional discomfort. This is why confidence is often misunderstood. Confidence is not speaking the loudest or pretending to be fearless. Real confidence is the quiet belief that your value does not disappear simply because someone fails to recognize it. That belief changes your posture, your expressions, your tone of voice, your decisions, and even the way silence feels around you. The first day of this challenge begins with something surprisingly simple yet incredibly uncomfortable for many people. Spend an entire day observing yourself instead of trying to impress anyone else. Pay attention to how often you check your phone hoping someone has reached out. Notice how quickly your mood changes when someone responds slowly. Become aware of how often you imagine conversations that haven't happened or create stories about what other people think of you. These habits seem harmless, but they reveal something deeper. They reveal where your emotional attention truly lives. If your happiness depends entirely on another person's reaction, then you have handed over control of your emotional world without realizing it. Attraction begins shifting the moment you reclaim that control. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" begin asking, "Do I genuinely enjoy becoming the person I am today?" That question changes everything because it redirects your attention from external approval to internal growth. As the day continues, challenge yourself to remove unnecessary distractions. Sit quietly for a few moments without reaching for your phone. Go for a walk without needing music to fill every second. Eat a meal while paying attention to your thoughts instead of scrolling endlessly through social media. At first, this silence may feel uncomfortable because most people have become experts at avoiding themselves. But hidden beneath that discomfort are emotions that deserve attention rather than escape. Loneliness, insecurity, fear of rejection, and the desire to be understood are experiences shared by nearly everyone. The difference is that emotionally healthy people allow themselves to experience these feelings without allowing those feelings to define their identity. They recognize emotions as temporary visitors rather than permanent labels. That awareness creates resilience, and resilience is incredibly attractive because it communicates emotional maturity. On the second day, begin practicing intentional kindness toward yourself. This may sound ordinary, but psychology repeatedly demonstrates that the way you speak to yourself influences nearly every interaction you have with others. Imagine spending years criticizing yourself every morning. Imagine constantly believing you are not attractive enough, successful enough, interesting enough, or lovable enough. Eventually, your brain accepts these thoughts as reality. Your posture becomes smaller, your smile becomes hesitant, your conversations become cautious. Without realizing it, you begin asking others to contradict beliefs that you created yourself. This is exhausting for both you and the people around you. Real transformation begins when your inner voice changes from an enemy into a trusted companion. Speak to yourself with honesty, but also with compassion. Acknowledge your mistakes without turning them into your identity. Celebrate your progress even if it feels small. Every encouraging thought becomes another brick in the foundation of genuine confidence. Now notice how differently you interact with people when you stop carrying the invisible burden of proving your worth. Conversations become lighter because they are no longer interviews where you desperately hope to be accepted. Eye contact becomes easier because you are not afraid of being judged. Laughter becomes natural because your mind is no longer occupied with self-criticism. Ironically, people often become more interested in you the moment you stop trying so hard to earn their attention. This happens because authenticity creates emotional comfort, while desperation creates emotional pressure. Human beings instinctively move toward environments where they feel relaxed and move away from situations that demand constant emotional reassurance. As this challenge continues, remember that attracting love is never about manipulating another person's emotions. It is about becoming someone who naturally inspires trust, respect, warmth, and emotional security. Lasting relationships are rarely built on perfect appearances or rehearsed words. They grow from consistent character, emotional honesty, genuine curiosity, and the courage to remain authentic even when there are no guarantees. During these first 2 days, you are not changing who you are. You are removing the emotional noise that has been hiding the strongest version of yourself all along. The goal is not to become irresistible to everyone. The goal is to become deeply connected with yourself so that when the right connection appears, you meet it with confidence instead of fear, with curiosity instead of anxiety, and with authenticity instead of performance. That is where this 7-day journey truly begins. And what happens over the next few days may completely redefine the way you experience love, connection, and the extraordinary power of your own mind. By the time you reach the 3rd day, something subtle begins to happen. Your attention slowly shifts away from chasing outcomes and toward understanding people. This is where genuine attraction starts becoming effortless, because the strongest connections are rarely built by those who constantly ask, "How can I make someone like me?" They are built by those who ask, "How can I truly understand another human being?" There is a profound psychological difference between these two questions. The first is driven by fear of rejection. The second is driven by curiosity. Fear narrows your perspective until every conversation becomes a performance. Curiosity expands your awareness and allows you to become fully present. Presence is one of the rarest qualities in today's world because almost everyone is physically somewhere while mentally occupied with worries, expectations, or distractions. Imagine having a conversation where you are completely focused on the person in front of you. You listen without interrupting. You notice expressions that words fail to explain. You hear emotion rather than simply collecting information. People remember that experience because being deeply understood is one of the most powerful emotional needs any person can have. They may forget the exact words you used, but they will remember how safe they felt while speaking to you. This day challenges you to replace assumptions with observation. Instead of instantly deciding what someone means, become curious. Instead of preparing your next sentence while someone is talking, allow silence to exist for a moment before responding. Psychology teaches us that active listening creates emotional trust because it communicates respect. Respect is the foundation upon which attraction quietly grows. Many relationships struggle not because people stop caring, but because they stop paying attention. They become experts at hearing words while ignoring emotions. The challenge today is to reverse that habit. Notice excitement hidden behind nervous laughter. Notice confidence hiding behind quiet behavior. Notice kindness expressed through small actions that often go unnoticed. The more carefully you observe others, the less likely you are to judge them unfairly, and the more naturally your own empathy begins to grow. Empathy should never be confused with sacrificing your own emotional health. Healthy empathy allows you to understand another person's feelings without becoming responsible for fixing every problem they face. There is an important psychological boundary here. Many people believe love means carrying another person's emotional burdens every single day until they are completely exhausted. But exhaustion is not proof of love. Constant self-neglect is not proof of loyalty. Real love allows compassion without losing identity. It offers support without abandoning self-respect. This distinction changes everything because people are naturally drawn toward individuals who can remain emotionally stable during difficult moments. Emotional steadiness creates a sense of security, and security is often more attractive than excitement alone, because excitement fades while stability builds lasting trust. The fourth day introduces a lesson that many people avoid because it feels uncomfortable. Learn to become comfortable with uncertainty. One of the biggest reasons people unintentionally push others away is their inability to tolerate not knowing what will happen next. A delayed reply suddenly feels like rejection. A busy schedule becomes evidence that someone has lost interest. A single misunderstanding grows into countless imaginary stories. The human brain dislikes uncertainty because uncertainty feels unsafe. As a result, it tries to fill every unanswered question with assumptions, and unfortunately, those assumptions are often negative. During this day, whenever you notice yourself creating stories without evidence, pause and ask yourself whether you are responding to reality or simply reacting to fear. This simple question interrupts automatic thinking and gives your rational mind the opportunity to take control. Imagine how different your interactions become when you stop demanding immediate certainty from every situation. You no longer need constant reassurance to feel valuable. You stop measuring your worth by the speed of someone's response or the amount of attention you receive. Instead, you begin trusting the process of getting to know people naturally. Ironically, this relaxed mindset often makes you significantly more attractive because emotional confidence leaves room for genuine connection to develop. Pressure suffocates relationships before they even begin, while patience allows authenticity to reveal itself over time. Another challenge for today is learning the strength of emotional restraint. Modern culture often encourages instant reactions. Someone disappoints you and you immediately send a long emotional message. Someone misunderstands you and you rush to defend yourself. Someone fails to meet your expectations and you assume the relationship is over. But emotional maturity is measured not by how intensely you feel, but by how wisely you respond. There is tremendous power in taking time before reacting. A calm response after thoughtful reflection almost always creates better outcomes than an impulsive emotional reaction. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means allowing your emotions to inform your decisions instead of controlling them. As these habits become stronger, your body language quietly changes without conscious effort. You begin walking with greater ease because your mind is no longer carrying constant emotional tension. Your facial expressions become warmer because you are not trapped in endless self-analysis. Your smile appears naturally rather than as an attempt to gain approval. Even your voice becomes calmer because confidence removes the need to rush every sentence. People often underestimate how strongly nonverbal communication influences attraction. Research consistently suggests that a large portion of emotional communication occurs beyond words. Calm movements, relaxed posture, patient listening, genuine eye contact, and authentic expressions all communicate emotional security long before any impressive sentence is spoken. Perhaps the most important lesson during these middle days is recognizing that attraction cannot be forced. You cannot convince someone to feel something they do not genuinely experience, and trying to do so only creates frustration. What you can control is the quality of the experience people have when they are around you. Do they feel respected? Do they feel heard? Do they feel accepted without unnecessary judgment? Do they leave conversations feeling lighter instead of emotionally drained? These experiences become emotional memories, and emotional memories shape future attraction far more than rehearsed lines or carefully planned strategies. As you move toward the 5th day, you may notice another unexpected change. You become less afraid of being alone. This does not mean you stop wanting love. It means your happiness is no longer postponed until someone else arrives. Psychologically, this is one of the healthiest shifts a person can experience because independence reduces emotional desperation. Love becomes something you choose to share rather than something you desperately need to survive. That mindset changes every interaction because people can sense the difference between someone seeking connection and someone seeking rescue. Healthy relationships are partnerships between two emotionally complete individuals, not attempts to fill emotional emptiness through another person. The more complete you become on your own, the more naturally you attract relationships based on respect, balance, and genuine appreciation, rather than fear, dependency, or constant emotional uncertainty. As you step into the 5th day of this challenge, you begin to understand a truth that many people spend years trying to discover. Attraction is not created by making yourself impossible to lose. It is created by becoming impossible to forget. There is a significant psychological difference between those two ideas. The first is driven by fear. The second is driven by authenticity. People often exhaust themselves trying to become whatever they believe others want. They change their opinions to avoid conflict. They hide their personalities to appear more agreeable. They suppress their passions because they fear being judged. Slowly, they disappear behind a version of themselves that was designed to gain acceptance rather than express truth. But authenticity has a magnetic quality because it is rare. In a world where many people wear emotional masks, the individual who is comfortable being genuine immediately stands out. Authenticity does not mean saying whatever comes to mind without consideration. It means allowing your values, your actions, and your words to remain aligned. When those three things move together, people experience consistency, and consistency builds trust faster than perfection ever could. Today's challenge is to express one part of yourself that you usually hide. It may be your creativity, your sense of humor, your curiosity, your kindness, or even your vulnerability. Many people mistakenly believe vulnerability makes them weak, but psychology repeatedly demonstrates that healthy vulnerability creates emotional closeness because it communicates honesty. Of course, vulnerability should always be shared wisely and gradually. Trust is built over time, not instantly. But allowing people to see your real thoughts and emotions instead of presenting a carefully edited version of yourself creates space for genuine relationships. Love cannot connect with a mask because a mask can never truly be known. Real connection begins only when authenticity replaces performance. Another important lesson on this day is learning to appreciate without clinging. Admire people without placing them on a pedestal. Respect them without believing they are responsible for your happiness. It is surprisingly common for people to confuse admiration with emotional dependence. They begin believing one person's attention determines their entire sense of worth. This creates enormous psychological pressure on both individuals. Healthy attraction allows admiration while maintaining emotional balance. You can deeply value someone without losing your own identity. In fact, the strongest relationships are formed by individuals who continue growing even while loving another person. They encourage each other's dreams instead of replacing them. They celebrate each other's independence instead of fearing it. That is what emotional maturity looks like in practice. The sixth day asks you to examine the emotional atmosphere you create wherever you go. Every person carries emotional weather. Some people enter a room filled with anxiety, criticism, and constant negativity. Others arrive with calmness, optimism, and quiet confidence. Without realizing it, everyone around them begins responding to that emotional climate. Human emotions are surprisingly contagious. We unconsciously mirror facial expressions, energy levels, speaking patterns, and emotional states. This means your emotional habits affect far more than your own happiness. They shape the experiences of everyone you interact with. If you consistently complain, expect disappointment, and anticipate rejection, those emotions gradually influence your relationships. But if you develop gratitude, patience, emotional resilience, and hope, people naturally feel more comfortable in your presence because your emotional state communicates stability rather than chaos. Today, challenge yourself to become the source of positive emotional energy without forcing optimism or pretending life is perfect. Genuine positivity is not the denial of problems. It is the confidence that problems can be faced without losing hope. Smile sincerely when greeting people. Express appreciation without expecting anything in return. Encourage someone who may need encouragement. Offer kindness even when nobody notices. These actions may appear small, but psychology explains that consistent positive interactions strengthen emotional memory. People remember those who consistently make them feel respected, appreciated, and emotionally safe. Attraction grows quietly through repeated experiences, not dramatic performances. As evening approaches on the sixth day, spend time reflecting on how much your emotional world has already changed. Notice how much less energy is spent worrying about things outside your control. Notice how your confidence no longer depends entirely upon external validation. Notice how conversations feel lighter because you are listening more carefully and performing less. These changes may seem invisible from the outside, but internally they represent one of the most important psychological transformations a person can experience. You are no longer searching for someone to complete you. Instead, you are becoming someone capable of building a complete and healthy relationship when the opportunity arrives.